Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah Edens, a finance coach, author, and wealth mindset researcher. You probably have credit cards just like many other people, and they're a major part of our life. And for most of us, we use them every single day for everything from paying bills to paying for discretionary purchases and everything in between. So it's sort of difficult to imagine life without our credit cards. But unfortunately, unless you're incredibly disciplined, they can really be a contributing factor to keeping you poor. And particularly if you have any of these three habits that you can use around your credit use that can be keeping you poor. So let's talk about those habits, and then we'll talk about fixes for them so that you can stop doing it and then have a fix if you're currently doing any of these things, and stop enriching the credit card companies, because who's making all this money? The credit card companies literally make billions and billions and billions of dollars each and every year off of you and people like you, just off of the interest on your debt and on late fees if you have late payments or missed payments. So why make those credit card companies wealthy if you can keep that money for yourself? The average American household right now is carrying about $7,300 worth of credit card debt. And so that's just, again, working in the credit card company in the bank's favor. I'll put a chart up on the screen that's really interesting. It shows the total outstanding credit card balances in the US since 1999 all the way up to 2023. So you can see back in the 90s, people's credit use really wasn't much to write home about. And then it just gradually rose and rose and really had a peak there during the 07-08 housing crisis. And then people's credit use, you can see how people's credit use really tracks with the economy. You know, people's credit card balances go up when they're having hard times and they're putting more things on the credit card, and then they go down when things are a little bit better with the economy. So then we had another peak there in 2020 with the pandemic, and then things got better. And then now what's really interesting is you see in 2023, we're at the highest level ever since 1999 of outstanding credit card balances here in the US. And so it's really fascinating because that just shows you that while we have experienced a lot of economic recovery since the pandemic, the inflation and other issues that are going on are still creating a significant issue for people. And people probably still have balances left over from the pandemic as well. It just really underscores the massive economic impact that had on people's lives and on their budgets. And so anyway, what are we supposed to do though about this, right? We don't want to, be one of those people that has massive outstanding credit card balances all the time, where we're just enriching the banks and enriching the credit card companies and having that erode away from our wealth. We want to keep that money in our wallets, or our digital wallets as it is these days. So the number one habit that's keeping you poor when it comes to credit card use is only making minimum payments. So if you are only making minimum payments, all you're doing is keeping up with the interest that's being charged on your credit card balance, but you're not really chipping away at the principal, which is the actual balance. You're just kind of keeping up with interest payments. So that can, again, really create a problem for you, because then you're going to eventually end up with a bit of a debt snowball if you're just making minimum payments over time. And you might go through phases where that's the best you can do, is making minimum payments. And so in that situation, I would encourage you focus on the card with the highest annual percentage rate. You'll see it abbreviated to APR, but go for the card that has the highest APR and do your very best to get that one kind of paid down as much as possible, or at least keep up with payments on that. And with your other cards, if you have other ones with lower APRs, then what you can do is just make a little bit more than the minimum payment every single month. Ideally, what you want to get towards and work towards is getting your entire balance paid off by the end of each month, because that way you don't roll over anything into the next month. You're not going to have any interest compounded on your credit card, balance there. And so you'll really be able to save yourself so much money if you're able to keep up with your balances, get them paid off religiously, and just not let things kind of coast from month to month, because it can be a really, seductively easy thing to do, unfortunately, just because credit cards are so convenient. But right now, credit card APRs are running anywhere from 20 to 29% for new credit cards that people are opening right now. The average is 20 to 29%, which is just wild. I have never seen them this high in the whole time that I was working in banking, and in my personal time of having credit cards, I've never seen credit card interest rates this high. So it's just costing you more to use credit cards now. The only thing that has a higher interest rate than that I can think of in terms of those kind of micro loans, like what credit cards are, is these buy now, pay later companies. And they can sometimes have interest rates of up to 30% depending on their setup. So it's just really good to be aware that sometimes these things that look so easy and so convenient are not working in your favor. And so don't make those companies that own those credit cards richer. You want to keep that money in your pocket. So do your best to make more than the minimum payment. Do your best to pay off as much as you can of your highest interest rate cards. And then ideally keep your cards paid off by the end of the month so you're not rolling balances over. The second credit card habit that's keeping you poor is ignoring your credit utilization ratio. And all that means is if you go pull up your credit card statement, either online or a recent paper statement, you'll see what your credit limit is on that card. So let's say your credit limit is $1,000. And so ideally, you don't want to be carrying balances at any given time of over 30% of your total credit limit. So on a $1,000 card, that would be $300 that you wouldn't want to have max. And why is that? Like, why is that something that can, make you poor if you end up maxing out your card? Or like, let's say you keep your balance at $900 all the time on a $1,000 card. Well, what that does is it hurts your credit score. And then as your credit score gets lower and lower, it's going to cost you more to take out other loans. So if you need to take out a mortgage, if you need to take out a car loan, if you want to open another credit card, you're going to get things with much higher interest rates on them because of having that lower credit score. And I have a whole playlist here on YouTube about how to improve your credit score and understand credit card use, because honestly, credit cards should come with a warning label. It is just atrocious how much trouble you can get yourself into so quickly with these little micro loans. And a lot of these credit cards, you might have a credit card that has $10,000, $20,000 on the credit limit. And it's much easier to spend money than it is to go back and budget and pay things off and stick to a budget. It's just, for most of us, it's much easier. We can spend money a lot faster than we can keep our bills paid. And so to have that kind of concept of free money, if you will, it's of course not free because you end up having to pay for it down the road at a pretty hefty interest rate on top of it. But in the meantime, it can just be really easy to just say, oh, I've got, $10,000 on my credit card limit. So no problem. I'll just put it on the credit card. And I think it's just gotten if you're my age and younger, I think it's gotten our entire generation into really bad financial habits because we've gotten so accustomed. I've been using credit cards my whole adult life, and we've just gotten so accustomed to just putting everything on the credit card and saying, well, we'll figure out how to pay for it later. But that is devastating for your personal finances because it's just, not a good practice. And especially and this is my third point, bad habit with credit cards that can keep you poor is if you're prone to a lot of impulse shopping or just pure unbudgeted spending. So maybe you have a budget, but it's just really a little bit too easy for you to fall off the bandwagon with the budget and go on a shopping spree, or just, say again, oh, I'll put it on the credit card. I'll figure out how to pay for it later. And like I said, it just creates this kind of bad habit versus, if you've got a situation where you're just spending the cash that you have, if you have something you want, but the cash for the month is gone, then it's a really easy decision because you just look at your budget and say, oh, well, I can't afford that this month. I'll buy it next month, rather than have this mindset I think we kind of live in now of saying, oh, well, I'll buy it now and pay for it later, whether it's on my credit card or a buy now, pay later service. Like Amazon has this now. You'll see this at the bottom of every single Amazon purchase that you're thinking about making. It'll say, $0 now, put it on a payment plan. Again, it's a similar concept to a credit card that can similarly run you a lot of money and potentially damage your credit score. So just not a good habit to continue if you've been in that habit, just kind of without thinking about it. And with the whole thing of impulse shopping, I have a video on that I'll link to in the description as well if you need some practical tips and pointers on how to break yourself out of that habit. But these 3 credit card habits really are keeping you poor, whether that's just only making your minimum payments, whether that is a lot of unbudgeted spending and just impulse shopping, and then overusing your credit card and maybe having it maxed out all the time. Those 3 habits are things that are making the credit card companies richer, making you poor. And we want to flip that equation and make you rich and not help out those companies that are already making plenty of money off of everyone else who have bought into that whole concept of, I'll put it on the credit card and pay for things later. So it really takes a lot of mindfulness and a lot of discipline. So if you struggle with impulse shopping, first of all, like I said, I'd recommend that you go watch my video that I made on impulse shopping, because that is something that is actually some practical things I use to help curb any impulse shopping urges that I have. And then also, I'd recommend that you check out this book. This is called The Budget Kit by Judy Lawrence. I'll link to it in the description. This is the very first book that I used when I was learning how to budget, and it's a really fantastic book. It's got some really practical workbook pages that you can just print out, and photocopy, and it's got some sample budgets. It also teaches you how to set up one in Excel. And so it's a really nice resource if you just need a way to start kind of collecting your thoughts on how to budget, but you have no idea how to. And then eventually, if you want to go over to using Mint or something like that, you can also do that. But I'd really recommend the Budget Kit just for starters, to be able to kind of get an introductory course, if you will, like a mini course on how to budget with some practical worksheets as well. And she talks a lot about mindful spending and only spending on things that bring you joy. But particularly when it comes to impulse shopping, if that's something that's really causing you a lot of problems and consistently causes you to run up debt on your credit cards, what I would really recommend is to just put your credit cards away for a while, and just don't use them. And you don't have to cut them up. In fact, I recommend that you keep them open, because it helps your credit score if you have a long credit history of cards that you've had open for 10, 15, 20 years. So don't close those credit cards. But I would recommend that you put them somewhere safe where you can find them. And then also make sure to check online, or if you get paper statements, however you get your banking statements on your credit cards, just always double check and make sure that there weren't any like magazine subscriptions or auto payments that are still billing to that credit card that will result in late fees for you. Because there's a lot of times things that I'll have set up on billing on my credit card maybe once a year or once every 6 months, and I just won't remember that they're there until it pops through. So keep an eye on that, but just maybe take a month of putting your regular purchases on your credit card and use your debit card instead, and just try that and see how that goes. A lot of financial advisors used to recommend just using cash, but that is so impractical today with how much online shopping that we do that I wouldn't really recommend that. But your debit card is just as convenient as your credit card, the only difference being that however much money you have in your account for your purchases that's what it is. And then when that's gone for the month, there isn't any more till next month or the next 2 weeks, or how often your paychecks get deposited. And you might be have the kind of job where you have money coming in throughout the month here and there. And so that might make it a little bit more challenging, but I would recommend that at least for a month, just try using your debit card for your major purchases. Maybe just use your credit card for bills. Like if you have utilities that bill to your credit card, maybe leave that alone just so you don't have to have the fuss of dealing with that. But for like discretionary spending or any of those things, like for your own spending that maybe in categories that typically run you over and cause you trouble, like those trouble zones, right? And you know what these are. It's different for everyone, but maybe for discretionary spending, just shift over to your debit card for a month and just see how that goes, because it's really about breaking out of that mindset of, I'll pay for it later, I'll pay for it later. Well, later you're going to have other expenses that I guarantee you will need to pay for later. And so it's just better to get into that practice and that habit of only spending money that you have now instead of spending tomorrow's money today. And so it's just a good habit and a practice to get into. So that's the fix I would recommend if you're just ending up running balances due to impulse shopping is really just use the credit card for your bills and kind of those fixed expenses, and then use your debit card for discretionary expenses, so like fun money type shopping, maybe grocery shopping, gas, things like that. And just see if you notice a difference in your spending habits and see if that shifts anything for you. Because I know for me, when I was first breaking myself out of this habit, this was 5, 6 years ago. So I actually took to doing the old-fashioned envelope system where you pull out all the cash you need for different things throughout the month, for your groceries and gas and fun money type purchases. And I put them in the little envelopes, and then I would take all that cash when I was going grocery shopping. And it was such a headache. It did help because in the sense that it was a good exercise. And it did keep me from blowing my budget every month, but it was also extremely inconvenient and just made paying for things take so much longer and be so much more time consuming. And so with a debit card, it's still super fast. And like, for example, too, if you think about it, at Amazon, you can get an Amazon gift card for yourself and preload it with money for the month. So you could also use an Amazon gift card to spend specifically at Amazon if Amazon's your trouble zone. So just be creative and open-minded and kind of think outside the box and do whatever works best for you on this one. But that's really my recommendation to you. And then for your debit card, just remember to go to your bank account online and set up overdraft protection for your debit card. And that's where you'll take your credit card and put it in as your overdraft protection. So that way, if something, overdraws your checking account that you didn't factor in, that way you're not charged a big overdraft fee. They can be $25 or more for each item that bounces, and then that can cost you a lot of money versus having a credit card that it'll just bill to that automatically. So that's where your credit card can kind of be your friend in that situation. Kind of think about it as your emergency backup plan. But for everything else, just try to keep it, to your budget. And that's really what I would recommend for you in this situation, is just to kind of start that for a month, see how it goes, see what you think. If it's working, great. If it's not working, try something else. But in terms of being able to quit running balances, that's probably the most effective thing that I've found helpful personally, is debit card use, preloaded Amazon gift cards. If you end up shopping on Amazon a lot and just mindlessly spending at Amazon, it can be so easy to do these days. And, and again, just really start with your budget too. And I've got a playlist on budgeting if you want to look that up on my channel as well. And then the budget kit. So just start to get those tools in your toolkit so that you can stay on track with your expenses, and then have more money in your pocket for the things that you want, and to be able to grow your wealth rather than helping, the credit card companies and the banks grow their wealth, because they don't need any help with that. Other people are already, doing plenty of that. So those are the 3 habits around credit cards that are keeping you poor and how to fix them. I hope you found this helpful. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And thank you so much for being here on my channel, and big welcome back to all my subscribers. And if you're new here, I'm so happy to have you as well. Thank you again for being part of our community here as we learn to unlock our inner millionaire by developing a wealth mindset and finance skills. I will see you again soon in my next video.